Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. On this best of edition of Other Items of Interest, we go back and take a look at all our stories involving drinking and drugs, some leading to laughs, others bewilderment. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. This best of edition is all about drinking and drugs. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes bewildering, sometimes confusing, and even sometimes concerning. We here at Other Items of Interest are not condoning the use of alcohol or drugs, nor are we condemning their uses either. Either, potato, potato. We're merely trying to produce a simple piece of entertainment. Now, some of these stories are life lessons on what not to do with your life. Others are, not many, just a few, feel-good stories. For the most part, a lot of these stories are funny. People do silly things when they get inebriated, and oftentimes the silly things they do are awfully funny. And I suppose this is the opposite of a trigger warning, but there are no acts of violence in these stories, as far as I can remember. We're not covering stories on meth heads getting violent. That's not what this is about. I think our first revisited story sets the tone for the show rather well. With all that having been said, let's get on with the best of drinking and drugs, shall we? I believe we shall. All right, this is how we're going to start out. From newshub.co.nz, driver who swerved to avoid an octopus was actually high. A UK man has blamed an octopus, squid, and even whitebait for why he crashed and flipped his car. Robert Shapley, 49, told police at the scene of the crash the sea creatures had caused him to overturn his car, despite the crash occurring at least 3 kilometers from any ocean. The Newton Abbot Magistrates Court heard that he told officers, "It got a bit bumpy for a while. I swerved to avoid an octopus. And it is pretty bad out there having to dodge all that whitebait." The man from Devon was eventually checked by paramedics and tested for any drugs in his system. Though not physically harmed, Shapley was found to have morphine, codeine, cannabis, and a byproduct of heroin in his system. Prosecutor Philip Sewell told the court that the drugs had an obvious effect. He was stumbling around, he wasn't coherent. He was talking about squid, octopus, and other sea creatures, Mr. Sewell said, later adding that Shapley pretended to be reading an imaginary book about hedgehogs at one point. Shapley pleaded guilty to a charge of driving while unfit through drugs, though he stated he didn't remember taking any before driving that day. Godspeed, you glorious bastard. From KTLA.com, child finds $40,000 in meth stuffed inside a Lego box from South Carolina's consignment shop. 3 Georgia women bought a box of Legos while visiting a South Carolina consignment shop, only to find that the box was actually filled with about $40,000 worth of methamphetamine. Bullock County Sheriff's investigator Jim Riggs tells the Statesboro Herald that the women gifted the box to a child who opened it and discovered the 3 pounds of drugs. Deputies say the women turned the drugs over to the sheriff's office, who called in Drug Enforcement Administration agents, otherwise known as DEA. Riggs say authorities determined the drugs were likely mailed to the wrong address. He says dealers often ship drugs to empty or abandoned addresses to be picked up, but the United States Postal Service, USPS. I don't know why they don't abbreviate anything in this article. Postal Service won't often leave packages at those sites. Instead, they're often left with a neighbor or auctioned off when unclaimed. This one comes to us from local12.com. Local man drinks only beer for 46 days, loses 44 pounds. This is actually an update to a story we did about a month and a half ago. I don't know if it was one of our first real episodes or if it was a test episode that we were trying out. In any case, I doubt any of you heard the original. I'm not going to go too in depth with this because, he lost weight, he drank his beer, no food. That's the story. But he got his idea from an ancient tradition that dates back to monks in the 1600s. Being master brewers, they decided they would take a popular style of beer in Germany, Bock beer, B-O-C-K, Bock beer, make it extra hearty, and that would be their liquid bread. And that's what they call it. So the monks in Bavaria, they would call Doppelbock liquid bread, and basically it would sustain them through the 46 days of Lent. Yeah, and he lost 44 pounds during the fast. Pretty good. The show is listed in the show notes. I don't feel like reading any more of it. It's not too much. His first meal after his fast, after Lent was over, was guacamole and probably beer. He's probably used to it by now. That's the gist of it. Check out the article in the show notes if you must. From ktvu.com, man allegedly hiding drugs in butt accidentally shoots himself in testicles. And that's not the craziest part. A man who shot himself in the testicles was also found to be hiding marijuana in his buttocks. Cameron Jeffrey Wilson, 27, was carrying a gun in his front pocket on April 5th in Washington State when the firearm accidentally discharged. The bullet pierced Wilson's testicles and then went into his thigh. Upon arriving at the hospital, a doctor was operating on the gunshot wound when a balloon of marijuana slipped out of Wilson's anus. Court records show. Police arrived at the hospital and searched Wilson's car, where they also found a bag of meth. The man's troubles did not end there, though. As Wilson, who was a convicted felon, was being processed in the Chelan County Jail, he was strip searched, and another balloon of marijuana came out of his anus. Maybe this guy just poops balloons of marijuana. Maybe that's all there is to it. Wilson has pleaded not guilty to second-degree felon in possession of a firearm and unlawful possession of meth. He also pleaded not guilty to possession of a controlled substance in a correctional facility. He's being held on a $110,000 bond. What's really funny to me is this story takes place in Washington State, where marijuana is legal. It was like the second state after Colorado to make it legal. Why he's putting balloons of marijuana up his bum, I don't know. I wish the article investigated that more, because it makes no sense to me. Unless it's like a hobby or something, some kind of kink. But I doubt it. That's all. Next story. Alabama man accused of feeding meth to a squirrel arrested. From NBCnews.com. An Alabama man, who authorities say kept a meth-fueled attack squirrel in his apartment, was arrested Thursday on multiple felony warrants unrelated to the squirrel. Narcotics investigators found Mickey Polk, 35, while they were conducting surveillance at a hotel in Killen, according to the Limestone County Sheriff's Office. Polk was arrested after he fled on a stolen motorcycle and rammed an investigator's vehicle. And there's a picture of Polk in cuffs on the ground. Polk was wanted for possession of an illegal firearm, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. Investigators in Athens, Alabama, searched Polk's home last week after getting a tip the man was keeping a methamphetamine-fueled attack squirrel at the residence. Narcotics investigators arrested one man and are looking for another after they executed a search warrant Monday that yielded meth, drug paraphernalia, body armor, and a squirrel, the sheriff's office said on June 18th. Polk uploaded a video on Facebook after the raid from the apartment with the squirrel. He acknowledged that the squirrel is aggressive and had bitten people, but denied that the rodent was trained to attack. And there's a picture of the squirrel. He's a chubby little fella. He's in a cage. Doesn't look too aggressive. Doesn't look like a meth head. The public isn't in danger from the methed out squirrel in the neighborhood, Polk said with a chuckle. He's not on meth, I'm pretty sure. Better not find out he's on meth anyway. I don't think he likes that shit. Okay. He wrote on Facebook that he had been bottle feeding the animal since it was hours old and raising it like it was my own. Well, that puts a warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart. Authorities said there was no safe way to test the squirrel for methamphetamine. You can't give the squirrel a pee test? No? Okay. The Limestone County Sheriff's Office did not immediately respond to a request for more information by NBC News on Friday. So there you have it. There's some animal stories. They run the gamut from cute and sweet to methed out squirrel. Squirrels are really kind of, I don't know, jittery, wiry. I don't know how to put it, but if you've seen a squirrel, you know they're quick movements and all that. I can't imagine a squirrel on meth. I don't know if I want to imagine a squirrel on meth. Stealing my hubcaps or something. From the files of Look at the Balls on This Guy, man calls police demanding they return his stolen pot. From MiamiHerald.com. Can you believe the balls on this guy? A man confused about Ohio drug laws has called the police department demanding that officers return the small amount of marijuana they stole from him. WXIX-TV reports that the man told the Sharonville police dispatcher in an expletive-laced call Tuesday that it's legal to possess 100 grams or 3.5 ounces of marijuana, and the amount officers seized was just 4 grams, or a measly 0.14 ounces. Sharonville police posted a recording of the call on their Facebook page. No link provided, sorry. The suburban Cincinnati Department Riley noted, people may be a bit in the weeds, so we would like to take this opportunity to clear the haze. All right. It's mildly amusing, I'll give them that. While some Ohio cities have decriminalized pot possession, it remains illegal in the state. Sharonville police said they don't make the rules, but must uphold them. I hate that line of reasoning and thinking. We don't make the rules, but must uphold them. Sounds familiar. Something about World War II. I don't know. Oh well, let's move on. From WHDH.com, Channel 7 News. No DUI for drunken woman who took Power Wheels truck on a joyride. Remember the Power Wheels truck? I guess they still make them. A South Carolina woman who police say was driving drunk will not be cited with a DUI because her vehicle of choice was a toy truck. News outlets quote police as saying that instead they charged 25-year-old Megan Hallman with public intoxication. They say they spotted her cruising down the road in a Power Wheels electric toy truck after a caller reported a suspicious person on the street. Officers say she was driving about a mile from her home in Walhalla when they stopped her. That one was short and sweet. I thought any kind of vehicle whatsoever, if you were intoxicated and caught driving it, driving under the influence. I guess not. And the following comes from Cake.com. That's K-A-K-E. News on your side, as they say. West Virginia residents using wasp spray as meth alternative. I can't imagine wasp spray to be enjoyable. I'm not going to try it out to find out for myself. I'm good, thank you. I'm cool. Residents in West Virginia are using wasp spray as an alternative form of methamphetamine, according to officials. West Virginia State Police called the use of wasp spray a cheap fix for the drug. People are making a synthetic type of methamphetamine out of wasp spray. How many times can I say wasp spray? Sergeant Charles Sutphin told ABC Charleston affiliate WCHS on Monday. Police believe wasp spray, oh my God, was behind 3 overdoses last week. It was not immediately clear how the people consumed the spray. I'd be interested to know. Are they just huffing it, One day we'll find out. I'm sure there's going to be more stories on this bullshit. Sutphin said the physical effects include erratic behavior, extreme swelling, and redness of the hands and feet. What a good time. That sounds really pleasant. What else? What else does it do to you? Pyrethroid, I don't know how to say that. A chemical found in wasp sprays can cause allergic reactions in some people, and repeated exposure could increase the intensity of the reaction, according to a recent study done by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln on pesticides. Sutphin echoed the notion that the more often one encounters wasp spray, the more dangerous it becomes. From what we're being told, if you use it, you might use it once or twice and be fine, but the third time, when your body hits that allergic reaction, it can kill you, he told WCHS. Dr. Rutherford Rose, the director of the Virginia Poison Control, told ABC News Wednesday that fatal allergic reactions from pyrethroid are rather uncommon, but a person could be seriously poisoned. Imagine that. He noted that the trend of abusing household items to get high is not new, specifically mentioning the idea of sniffing whiteout, paint, and whipped cream. Well, you don't sniff whipped cream. That'd be pretty stupid. I thought they took out whatever makes you get high from whiteout. I thought they took that chemical out. Maybe they just said that so people would stop doing it. I don't know. There's a long history of people attempting to use products in an attempt to recreate some kind of high, Rose said. Maybe if there was something somewhat safe, like a plant, like marijuana maybe, on a federal level made it legal, we wouldn't have this type of bullshit happening. People looking to consume wasp spray. There, I said it again. The reasons for using wasp spray as an alternative form of meth, he said, could be a result of what he described as a more restrictive opioid market. It's not surprising that as the opioid market becomes more restricted, people are turning to other things, he said. It's a sign or a symptom of a larger problem we have. We work on the supply, but there's also the demand, and that's a lot harder. If you restrict the supply of some things, they'll turn to something else, he said. And that's how that works. Don't do any kind of bug spray. It can't be. Captain Obvious chiming in, it can't be good for you. Right? I'd have to say this is one of my favorite Florida Man stories. From ABC13.com, Florida man wrecks liquor shop, blames Caterpillar. A Florida man arrested for destroying a liquor store under construction told police he was Alice in Wonderland and that a hookah-smoking caterpillar ordered him to attack the site. Fair enough. Crestview police said in a post on Facebook that Matthew Horace Jones is accused of breaking into a fenced-in area and using a forklift to cause more than $100,000 in damages. I've been reading that wrong the whole time. That's a lot, $100,000 in damage. He faces grand theft felony and other charges. Witnesses called 911 and police went to the site. The police report says Jones aimed the forklift toward officers who stopped him at gunpoint. Police quoted Jones as identifying himself as Alice in Wonderland, blaming the attack on a hookah smoking caterpillar, and saying that he had a problem with building a place to sell alcohol. Everything seems above board there. Woman accused of serving co-workers meth-laced bean dip. I don't like bean dip. The only thing worse I can think of is meth-laced bean dip. This comes to us from koin.com. An Albany woman is facing charges after she allegedly mixed meth into bean dip eaten by a coworker. That's awful. The Marion County Sheriff's Office said 38-year-old Cassandra Medina Hernandez was working at the deli at Jefferson Thriftway on Old Pacific Highway in Jefferson on September 9th when she allegedly put meth into a serving of bean dip. Another co-worker went to the deli to get some food for her lunch break. According to probable cause documents, she said Medina Hernandez let her try the dip she was making. The victim liked it so much that she took some home to eat during break. She told investigators she thought a bite of the dip tasted funny, but she didn't think much of it. That's the flavor of meth. She started to feel sick and unsteady when she went back to work a short while later. She was taken to a hospital where tests suggested she had meth in her system. During the investigation, another Thriftway employee told deputies Medina Hernandez admitted to putting meth in the bean dip. Deputies believe at least one other employee ate the dip from the same dish suspected of being contaminated. Investigators don't think any customers were exposed to the dip. Shoppers at the Thriftway were shocked to hear about the allegations. I think it's really unusual. I really do. I've never heard of such a thing. Shopper Georgia Waterbury told KOIN 6 News. The store's owners, meanwhile, said Medina Hernandez has been a reliable employee since she started working there in July. They said Medina Hernandez denies the accusations. She's been suspended pending the investigation. Medina Hernandez was arrested Wednesday at the Lynn County Parole and Probation Office in Albany. She made her first court appearance on Thursday. She's facing charges of unlawful delivery of methamphetamine, recklessly endangering another person, and causing another person to ingest a controlled substance. Her bail is set at $500,000. That's some hefty cabbage right there. Huge drug bust at Gatwick turns out to be vegan cake mix, from theguardian.com. A huge drug bust at Gatwick Airport has turned out to be part of a cake. A member of staff from Pureza Vegan Pizzeria was transporting the ingredients in a suitcase when they were stopped by police. The white powder, which was divided into blue bags, was tested before officers accepted it was legal. British Transport Police said officers were called to Gatwick Airport Station at 1:34 p.m. on 28th of August after a suitcase was found containing 25 bags of powder. Following a number of inquiries and tests, it was determined these bags of powder were cake ingredients for a vegan bakery. They were soon reunited with the owner, who has promised officers and staff a slice of cake in return. The restaurant, which has stores in Brighton and London, tweeted, "Thanks for going easy on us, guys. A slab of cake all around is in order when you're next in Brighton." And it's a happy ending for everybody. Nobody was killed. It wasn't a drug bust. A very tame story for a very tame episode so far. I don't know, using a patient's vagina as a ventriloquist dummy is not so tame. Let's move on. The following article comes to us from KMOV.com. Family Video expanding CBD sales to all St. Louis area stores. Instead of promoting the latest blockbuster movie, the marquee outside the Family Video store in Waterloo, Illinois, is all about CBD. Inside, between the aisles of DVDs, there are stands of CBD products. The bombs, sprays, even chapstick are made with cannabidiol, which comes from the cannabis plant. It does not have THC like you'll find in marijuana. CBD products are not regulated by the FDA. Who cares? It's taken off like wildfire, said Tim O'Toole, regional manager of Family Video. He oversees 22 stores in Illinois and Missouri. He said some customers come in for movies and then check out the CBD products, while others come in for CBD and pick up a DVD too. He said the video company started adding their products to its hundreds of stores across the country after the chain's owner, Keith Hoogland, suffered a bad case of tennis elbow and treated it with CBD. Topical ointment that he put on his tennis elbow, he could not believe the relief he saw from the bomb, said O'Toole. With many other customers turning to Netflix or other streaming services for movies they used to rent, Family Video isn't shying away from capitalizing on CBD products to stay relevant. In the 80s and 90s, when video was booming, we used video to acquire real estate. We're about $1 billion real estate company across the country, said O'Toole. Brag much? So don't be surprised if those stores begin to carry more cannabis products. I think CBD is kind of a tiptoe to see how it would be received, O'Toole said. While Waterloo has become one of the chain's best-performing stores for CBD sales, O'Toole says they aren't planning on pushing out the videos just yet. We still feel like there's need in a niche market. There's that nostalgic feel for video, said O'Toole. Right now, those CBD products are already in all the Family Video stores on the Illinois side of the St. Louis region. They plan to have them in all Missouri stores by June 1st. I've said it before that pot's going to be in everything, infused into all foods and drinks. I mean, not everything, but you can get pretty much whatever you want with pot infused. Now seeing stuff like this happen, it's going to be sold everywhere as well, which I say good. And we have a nice short, sweet one from Coin.com, KOIN, Channel 6. Their slogan is watching out for you. It's not one of those ones that's on your side. This one's watching out for you. Headline reads, man faces DUI after neighbor reports stolen cereal. And right up top we have the mugshot. Check that out if you'd like. A man was arrested for DUI after his neighbor called the police over a stolen box of Cheerios. The Washington County Sheriff's Office said a man in the Bethany area reported that his neighbor, Robin Bolin, drove by and stole a box of cereal that was on top of his car. I don't know why he had a box of cereal on top of his car. Maybe he was getting his groceries out. No clue. Doesn't say. Bolin, 25, then reportedly got back into his car and drove to his nearby house. The neighbor who called said he followed Bolin to get his cereal back. Vigilante justice. Bolin had poured himself a bowl and was also drinking a beer, the sheriff's office said. That's gross. Milk and beer. Ugh. The neighbor declined Bolin's offer to share a bowl of cereal. Trying to be diplomatic, I guess. When deputies arrived, Bolin was arrested for DUI with a blood alcohol content nearly twice the legal limit. And you don't want that in Oregon. They got some pretty strict laws for DUIs. Why would you, I guess he was drunk, but why would you steal a box of cereal off the top of somebody's car? You think you're funny? You're not funny. It's somebody else's Cheerios. Go get your own Cheerios. Jesus. Have you ever gotten so drunk you turned yourself into the police? Well, from KCRA.com, man drank 7 beers before turning himself in, but there was no warrant for his arrest. Whoops. A Texas man ended up in jail even though there was no warrant for his arrest. According to KTVT, Billy Bob Hall, Billy Bob, thought there was a warrant out for his arrest for a parole violation. He went to the local jail to turn himself in. But before turning himself in, Hall drank 7 Budweiser beers. The deputy speaking with the 59-year-old detected the strong smell of the beer. KTVT reports Hall told police he had to drink to build up the courage to turn himself in. Authorities said Hall did not have a warrant out for his arrest, but police found him to be intoxicated to the level where he was in danger to himself or others. Hall was arrested for public intoxication. It's like a really lame Twilight Zone episode. From news18.com, drunk man vomits so hard, throws up undiagnosed tumor, then swallows it back. All right, I'm done. I'm out. If I throw up during this article, I apologize. I'll keep it into the podcast, but vomiting after a hard drinking session proved to be a blessing in disguise for a man in China after doctors found out that a meatball-like mass he had thrown up and swallowed back in his drunken stupor was actually a long-ignored tumor. According to Oriental Daily, the 63-year-old man from Hubei, China, had been feeling discomfort in his throat for some time, especially when he swallowed solid food, but he chose not to seek medical attention. That's until, after a recent binge drinking session, he began throwing up and felt a sudden sharp pain in his throat, followed by the sudden presence of a meatball-like mass in his mouth. The man was so drunk that he thought he had vomited part of his body out, and quickly swallowed the meatball back with a glass of water. Fortunately, the man decided to seek medical attention this time and went straight to the hospital. After hearing his story and conducting an endoscopic exam, doctors discovered that the meatball was in fact a tumor growing at the top of the man's esophagus. Further examination revealed that the tumor had grown all the way to the man's throat and risked blocking the airway. How do you not notice that? The man underwent a surgery to remove the 15-centimeter long and 4-centimeter thick tumor, which was later identified as a fibroma. The man had described the mass he threw up and swallowed back as a long, forked tongue. Fibromas can grow on any organ and are generally benign, but depending on their location, they can still cause health problems. In this particular case, excessive growth could have made it difficult for the patient to swallow. I'm grossed out. Medical experts quoted by the Oriental Daily said fibroids are generally benign tumors, but excessive growth can obstruct eating and turn malignant. It's good to know. I'm not eating meatballs for a while. I think I just want to end the show now. From foxnews.com. I really don't like using Fox News as a source, but it's a decent article. Worst part is the comments at the end of the article. No matter what the article is about, it's just shit comments from angry, upset, pissy people. I have nothing good to say. It's just awful. And you might want to check out the show notes on this one because there are cringe-inducing pictures. But we'll get to that. Headline reads, Man needs chopstick surgically removed from hand after attempting beer bottle trick, doc says. I don't know if you know the trick, but it's a way of opening a beer bottle that isn't safe at all. A seemingly innocuous tableside trick is sending people in China to the hospital, prompting one doctor to share gruesome patient photos in an effort to warn against attempting to open a beer bottle with a chopstick. Dr. Jian Zhenfei, a hand and food surgeon, that's what's written, I swear to God. Not a hand and foot surgeon, a hand and food surgeon. That's ridiculous. That's Bush League. Dr. Jian Zhenfei, a hand and foot surgeon at the Zhaoshan Hospital of Traditional Chinese Medicine, said he worked for 30 minutes to free the chopstick from his patient's hand. The chopstick was about 2 centimeters, about an inch deep in his palm, and was bulging on the back of his hand. That's the picture you get to see. He said it hurt a lot and wanted me to pull it out. I asked how it happened, and he said he tried to show off by opening his third beer with a chopstick, Zhenfei said. And the picture is, it's just the guy's hand and a chopstick trying to protrude from the top of his hand. And it looks really disturbing. Go check it out. According to several local outlets and state news agency China News Service, while the trick is several years old, Zhenfei said he has seen an increase in the number of patients requiring medical attention for chopstick-related injuries as a result of the trick, including 5 in just the last 2 weeks. Yeah, people should probably stop doing this. And there's another picture of it. I can't stand to look at it because it just looks like it wants to come right through the top layer of skin on the hand. The way the trick works, hey, let's teach people how to do this so they can try on their own. The way the trick works is by wedging one side of the chopstick under the cap of the beer bottle and quickly hitting the other end with an open palm. At least one patient allegedly hit the chopstick too hard, resulting in severe injury and nerve damage. I was supposed to cut his palm open to check for nerve damage, but he refused and left the following morning, Zhenfei reportedly said. So it's hard to say whether he will suffer any long-term effects from the injury. And that's the end of the article. God, I just looked at the comments. I looked at the comments when I was getting my articles together. People are despicable. They're not funny. They think they're being funny. But they're just shitty people. I'm sorry to say that, Fox News listeners, watchers, whoever you are. What's a trip to Disneyland without the LSD? Man who took LSD at Disneyland Paris found naked, confused. From Canoe.com. The Swiss tourist had planned the trip of a lifetime, taking LSD while on vacation at Disneyland Paris. What could possibly go wrong? Plenty, as the 32-year-old engineer discovered this past weekend. He wound up in jail on narcotics charges after disappearing into a pond and launching a 130-person search with helicopters and dogs, only to turn up hours later naked and confused on a quiet residential street about a mile away. The misadventure began Friday evening when the man's 30-year-old girlfriend slipped him the hallucinogenic drug. According to Le Parisien, almost immediately he fell into the man-made lake in Adventureland near Captain Hook's pirate ship and the menacing grimace of Skull Rock from Peter Pan. Is it Skull Rock or Skull Island? I don't know. When he didn't resurface, his girlfriend grew nervous. At around 8:30 p.m. Friday, the park began to close up for the night, and she alerted staff that he was still missing. The French newspaper didn't indicate whether the woman had also taken LSD, but did note that she did not seem to be in possession of all her means. And it says in parentheses here, the couple have not been named in French media accounts in accordance with European privacy laws. Privacy laws, that's interesting. We call it freedom of the press here, baby. USA. Excuse me. And that wasn't a real rant, lest anybody think so. For hours, worried Disneyland employees combed the park, but there was no sign of the Swiss engineer. He hadn't climbed onto the pirate ship or hopped onto the Indiana Jones and Temple of Peril ride or hauled himself onto Pirates Beach. The search party came to include 10 divers, 10 policemen, 30 firefighters, and 80 Disneyland Paris employees, the Parisien reported. By then, it had grown dark, making it harder for them to peer into the lagoon circling Adventureland, and dogs and a police helicopter with a thermal camera were brought in for backup. Early the next morning, as the search continued, a 44-year-old man driving home from work came across an odd sight in the town of Chessy, a little more than a mile from Disneyland Paris. I came face to face with a naked man. The driver, who asked only to be identified as Benoit, told Le Parisien. He was walking in the middle of the road. He did not have a centimeter of clothes on him, and he was barefoot. The man was calmly making his way down Chemin de Fosse Rouge. I'm terrible at French. I'm terrible at English, but I'm really terrible at French. It's a tranquil, tree-lined street where cottages and large villas sit behind hedges and imposing gates. I stopped, got out of the car, and went to meet him, Benoit told the paper. I wanted to know what a naked man was doing 300 meters from my home. The nude man, who by then was completely dry, had scratches all over his arms and legs. He didn't remember anything, Benoit said. Somewhat problematically, he also didn't speak French. Eventually, the two realized they could communicate in English, and the mysterious naked man explained that he had taken LSD as part of a bet that he made with friends, and that his girlfriend was probably worried. Benoit offered to call her, but the man was also unable to remember the number. With his initial apprehension dissipating, Benoit realized that the man was harmless and also horribly lost. He put the stranger in his car and ran inside his house to get a pair of rugby shorts and a t-shirt so that he could cover himself up, he told Le Parisien. Then he dropped his baffled passenger off at the park's edge, having somehow gathered that the man's strange journey had begun at Disneyland Paris. Rescuers found the man there at around 1:15 a.m., and he and his girlfriend were arrested for narcotics use, according to Le Parisien, and taken to the police station in Chessy. But authorities evidently felt the couple had been through enough, because they were released Saturday afternoon after spending less than a day in jail. Le Parisien reported that both received, I don't know how to pronounce this, rappel à la loi for drug use, which roughly translates to reminder of the law. The citation, which doesn't get added to a person's official criminal record, is typically handed out when a prosecutor chooses not to press charges. Disneyland Paris, likewise, was unfazed by the incident. Park officials told La Parisien that the hours-long search didn't disrupt their regular operations or a 5K race that took place the same evening. The visitors did not even realize that there was a problem, a source told the paper. It remains unclear how the man surfaced from resurfaced from the Adventureland lake and left the park without his girlfriend noticing, what happened to all his clothes, and where he went for several hours while rescuers were frantically searching for him. But initial news reports about the disappearance at least solved one mystery for Benoit, who had been wondering about the chain of events that led a severely confused naked man to materialize in front of his car. It was my wife who, seeing the article, explained to me what had happened, he told La Parisien. That guy might have had a blast, and he'll never know it. I really hate mayonnaise. How about we get into the article before I start, just spouting off nonsense? From kget.com. Man accused of killing wife claims powerful group infected him with mayonnaise. I don't know if I hate mayonnaise that much. I don't think I'm getting infected by it. Let's get to the article. Arrested in the death of his wife, Nathaniel Robertson admitted during an interview with sheriff's detectives to beating her with a concrete block. But Robertson, in a confusing, rambling statement, said he did it to give her compassion and mercy, as the alignments were not in place to protect her, according to recently released court documents. He said he had been infected by mayonnaise, quote-unquote, they put in him. The they in this case, was a group of brutal, powerful people Robertson said he couldn't identify. There was something inside him releasing information from the Revolutionary War. That's a real sentence. There was something inside him releasing information from the Revolutionary War. Asked if he used drugs, he said he used ice to help him breathe. Ice is commonly used to refer to methamphetamine. Robertson also said he'd been ingesting crystal, which a detective understood to mean crystal meth. Real quick public service announcement to all 11 listeners out there. Don't do meth. I know it's something you don't have to be told, but I just like to put it out there. Don't touch the stuff. I've never done it. I don't want to do it. I've seen people on it. It's crazy town. It's a one-way ticket to crazy town. Anywho, Robertson said he loved his wife and she was his best friend. I didn't want it to be a painful thing, Robertson told investigators. I didn't want to hit her a bunch of times. I wanted to end it. I didn't want her suffering. Crazy town, I'm telling you. Robertson, 46, has pleaded not guilty to a charge of first-degree murder in the death of Lydia Robertson, 57. He's held on $1 million bail. Deputies dispatched to a residence in the 300 block of Sycamore Drive the morning of July 11th found blood spattered. Spattered? Shouldn't it be splattered? Splattered? Who cares? Across the floor at the front entrance. Lydia Robertson was lying on the floor with major head trauma and a large pool of blood surrounding her. A large concrete block was next to her. A neighbor told deputies she heard arguing coming from the Robertsons' residence the night before. The neighbor said she saw Nathaniel Robertson leave the residence and later return carrying what she described as a large rock. Nathaniel Robertson again left his residence around 1:30 a.m. and walked towards Riverview Park, the neighbor told deputies. Another person said Nathaniel Robertson suffered from mental illness and abused drugs, and he and Lydia Robertson had remained married only for financial reasons. Deputies arrested Nathaniel Robertson at the park. He said he had been walking around looking for a place to kill himself, according to the documents. That's a pretty crazy story. Again, stay away from regular methamphetamine. Stay away from crystal methamphetamine. Just don't get involved in it. Please. Thank you. The following comes from the Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com. We're really happy to get this toe. Arctic marathoner donates amputated digits for a hotel's infamous cocktail. Infamous? Whatever. Nick Griffiths didn't want his toes to go to waste. Not all of them were going to make it home with him after he had to be evacuated from the Yukon Arctic Ultra by snowmobile in February 2018. Suffering from deep frostbite during the 300-mile race, the 47-year-old ultramarathoner from the UK had been slogging through the snow and ice out in the Canadian wilderness for 30 consecutive hours when his hands and feet started to turn raw. He was pulling a sled of supplies, temperatures colder than 40 below zero, bent on crossing a finish line hundreds of miles away. It was so cold that his eyes were frozen open, his eyelashes stuck together, and his lids unblinkable. Ice crystals were falling from the sky like missiles. Dehydrated, sleepless, and numb, Griffiths surrendered at mile 50. The doctor soon informed him 3 of his toes would have to go. But still, a nurse assured him he didn't really have to lose them, at least not completely. Had he ever heard of the sour toe cocktail, she asked. Griffiths thought it was a whiskey drink. Sort of, the nurse said. It's a shot of whiskey with a mummified human toe dropped inside, like an orange peel in an old-fashioned. And if Griffiths wanted, maybe it could be his toe. The bar at the downtown hotel in Dawson City, Yukon, is always in need of toes, she said. Griffiths was intrigued. So I got in touch with the hotel, he said, and they said, well, if we can get them, we'd love to have your toes. Griffiths couldn't pass up the chance to become the main ingredient of one of the world's most disgusting drinking experiences. His toes arrived by mail at the bar last week. People have been venturing to Dawson City's downtown hotel to throw back the sourdough cocktail since 1973, when a local boat operator found a severed toe in a cabin and thought turning it into a drinking challenge might be a great way to draw tourists. Somehow it was. Since then, Terry Lee, the bar's official toe master, estimates that more than 100,000 people have become members of the Sourdough Cocktail Club. And there's plenty of pictures for this article as well. You check the show notes at otheritemsofinterest.com. The toe master, Terry Lee, I've seen him before on like Travel Channel stuff, but he looks like Popeye's father, Pappy. And I don't know if you guys can hear this, but there's a huge truck going by. My microphone is going crazy, just shaking, just rattling. Can you hear that? I think it's gone. Now it's beeping. To join the club, you don't have to swallow the toe or even put it in your mouth, but there is one rule, more so a motto. According to Lee, you can drink it fast, you can drink it slow, but your lips must touch the gnarly toe. The toe is mummified, dry and blackish brown. It is stored in a jar of salt in the warmth of the furnace room for preservation. There are currently 2 toes in stock, rotated out until they decay into useless stubs. That's kind of gross. Everything else is fine. This is why Griffith's donation is so special, Lee said. It can be challenging to stock the bar with new toes, which only come every several years. We're really happy to get this toe, Lee said. We've been without a big toe for a long time. Griffith's donation is uncommon for several reasons, Lee said. Typically, the donated toes don't go through so much trouble to get there. They're usually willed to the bar by anonymous deceased people. Sometimes they are donated by living people who chop off a toe on accident with a lawnmower or a chainsaw. But rarely, Lee said, does a living person donate an amputated toe after voluntarily trudging 50 miles through the Arctic wilderness. Griffiths is that guy. A former British Marine, Griffiths was always been itching for the next endurance testing thrill. He's completed the Ironman triathlon, which included a 2.4-mile swim and a 112-mile bike race with a marathon at the end. He's rowed a boat across the Atlantic Ocean with a small crew of friends, a 59-day venture. The Yukon Arctic Ultra, he said, was only part of the natural progression. I like a challenge and I like an adventure, but there's people out there who are way more adventurous and tougher than I am. I'm just a normal bloke who likes to have a go at things and experience life. So he geared up with a closet's worth of long johns, fleece, and waterproof, windproof puffy jackets, and bought his ticket for the 300-mile Arctic Marathon. The racers are entirely self-sufficient, pulling their own food, sleeping bags, and water on a tiny sled, as though they are the dogs and the supplies are the mushers. The trail is marked, but last year, Griffith said, the conditions got so bad that the organizers had to rescue almost everybody, halting the event for one day. The day started out just fine. The temperature was about minus 36, really nice day. But by nightfall, the temperature plummeted and became unbearable. Griffiths knew he couldn't stop walking. He couldn't lie down and sleep, but eventually, Griffiths said, he and a partner were too exhausted to go on. They huddled in the snow for 3 hours in the middle of the night, from midnight to 3 a.m., shivering and massaging their numb muscles to keep the blood flowing. The left foot was a problem, Griffiths realized. He couldn't get it warm. By the next evening, when event staff transported Griffith on an hours-long journey to the nearest hospital, his toes were purple. The surgeon thought he was going to lose them all, if not his entire foot. Griffiths remained in the hospital for treatment for several days before flying back home to Manchester, where a surgeon geared him up for an amputation. There, he told the doctor about the sourdough cocktail. He thought it was quite amusing, Griffiths said. He said, "Look, they're your toes. You can have them if you want." When I came back from surgery, next to me were 3 little jars with my toes in it. The hard part was figuring out how to transport the toes to the downtown hotel bar. For months, the hotel kept trying to fly him out to deliver them in person, but plans kept getting thwarted by Griffith's long-term medical treatment. Finally, fearing it was a bit of a waste of these toes to just sit there, Griffith turned to the postal service. I didn't really think you could send body parts through the post, he said, but to his delight, the post office said it would take about 5 to 7 days. It didn't, of course. 5 weeks later, to Griffith's relief, the toes arrived intact, floating in the medical-grade alcohol. Lee said the next step will be soaking the toes in salt to dry them out, as part of the 6-week mummification process. Then they'll be ready to serve. Griffith said he still plans to make the trip to Dawson City, so I can drink my own toe. My wife and kids, they think I'm a bit mad, he said. I don't know if I would do the sour toe cocktail drink thing. I think as soon as that toe touched my lips, I'd vomit everywhere. And I think that's it, because it's getting to be a bit of a ruckus outside. I hear something firing up. Yeah, we're going to call it a day. Let's call it a day. You have been listening to Best of Drinking and Drugs from Other Items of Interest with your host, Jack Zablocki. Hope you had a good time. Hope everything is kosher. We'll see you on the next Best of. Bye-bye.